Back with you on the Reier on YouTube channel, where it is time once again for No Sleep Teal, a program dedicated to discussion involving the National Football League's Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Reier on this end, Evan Reier on the other end. And the show, as always, brought to you by Party Girl Avondale, right there in the historic district of Avondale in Duval on the west side of Jacksonville, Florida. Be sure to get by and check out Party Girl Avondale. So many great things. It's a bakery, it's a take and go option for dinners, chicken salad, pimento cheese, game day dips. You need some game day dips, dirty martini dip, buffalo chicken dip, the goat dip. Boy, you can just make that party go to the next level with Party Girl Avondale, 4205 St. John's Avenue. And the weather outside here in Duval on this Monday afternoon, as we're live here on Reier on YouTube, is just extraordinary. It belies the mood, however,
Yeah.
for the Jacksonville Jaguar fan base after, I guess we'll call it a performance
Yeah.
against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday over in London. We've been to London for Jaguar games. I think we've enjoyed them maybe a little bit more, certainly the one a year ago in Wembley anyway, than those who made the trip yesterday.
Yeah. That's a tough one to swallow. After you get on that flight, you pay for your hotel, you pay for your excursions, you do all that, and then they kind of lay an egg. I mean, really, it was kind of all three phases. Kind of let the Jags down. Um, we kind of talked about it going into it. It was like, I think we said like 2 weeks ago, it's like, even if you kind of drop the ball and you lose to the Seahawks and Rams, you're 4-3, you get to the bye week, it'll be all good. Well, you would have liked to have seen maybe better performances against not just the Rams, but also the Seahawks. But yeah, yesterday was definitely the worst performance of the season by a long, long shot. And they're going to have to answer some questions over the course of the bye week.
The bye week, it feels like, comes at just the right time, although
They desperately need it.
this team is spiraling. It is back-to-back losses. It's not like it's 3 or 4 yet. And the trip to Las Vegas actually looks pretty inviting right now, because as bad as the Jags have been the last 2 weeks, the Raiders yesterday
Were
exceeded, or I
Yeah,
don't know if it's exceeded when you're below poor, because the Jags were poor against the Rams. Whatever is below poor, that's what the Raiders were in
yeah,
Kansas City on Sunday. So there is that glimmer coming out of the bye week. And also, at least you're not in London for 2 weeks
yeah,
this year. And also, the Jags, again, they've kind of switched this thing up in terms of procedurally how they go about the London trip. Maybe it was because they were just there for one game, but they went over early in the week. I don't know. Maybe it has been beneficial to the Jags in the past when they've gone over early, but I can't recall when that's been the case. They looked like a team in terms of energy and engagement on Sunday that was probably ready to play on Thursday because they
right.
went over Monday. But by Sunday, they just looked like a team ready to get home. And this is a Rams team without two key starters on the
Yeah.
offensive side of the ball, including one of the very best receivers in all the National Football League.
Yeah, it didn't matter much.
No.
I mean, you didn't really notice that Puka was missing with the way that Matt Stafford was throwing 5 touchdowns in this game. Um,
Mostly
we
the
mentioned
guys,
last week, I
including
think, that Devontae Adams is still very much a problem,
Mhm.
and he was, especially in the red zone. I think there's probably something to that, though. What you're saying about the Jags, in terms of the timing of going over to London. Um, we know, intimately that, in years past that the Jags have taken a really long-term approach where it's like, okay, well, we're going to get over there. We're going to be settled. We're going to be used to the jet lag. We're going to get ahead of it. But it kind of feels like if you only have the 1 week over there, that you probably should wait a little bit and just try to get over there, get it done, and get back. Um, no matter what, this team, yeah, just didn't really have the juice. They kind of started slow, and I can appreciate Cohen and the offensive group trying to kind of take risks to, when you go down early like the Jags did, you kind of have to find a spark. You gotta have a big play, but it just never happened. I mean,
No.
they couldn't access that. Um, and part of me wonders if that's because the Jags have continually over the past few weeks gotten away from what we thought was going to be the offensive identity of this team, about running the football, about, being physical. They didn't really do either of those yesterday.
No, and you look at the numbers for Travis Etienne and Bashal Tootin, 13 combined carries. That's it for
Yeah.
66 yards. Now, part of the problem is, yes, you do get behind 14 to nothing in the first quarter, and then you compound that with these penalties, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to be committed to the run game when you're putting yourself off schedule via penalties. And you also lose a special teams touchdown to a block in the back on a punt return by Parker Washington. So I'm with you from the standpoint of even at 14 to nothing, they've got to continue to try to run the football because again, if you get Trevor Lawrence up into the 40s and pass attempts, which happened again yesterday, throws it 48 times.
Damn near 50.
It's pretty well predictable what's going to happen. Now, it probably didn't matter yesterday because in every facet of football, the Jaguars were not up to it. They just were not. And as you said, the difference when you put a guy like Stafford on the field with Trevor Lawrence in
Yeah.
terms of elite versus middle of the pack starter in the National Football League becomes very apparent. And I am no apologist for Trevor Lawrence, by the way. I am not. I've said for a long time now, he's middle of the pack and you got to build around him in that way. I think the Jaguars took that approach in the offseason, but it wasn't all on Trevor Lawrence
No, not
Sunday
at all.
either. There were drops, there's continued issues. What the hell is the deal with Brian Thomas Jr., big picture wise, with this football team? And it's also with the offensive line and guys like De'Ami Brown and some of those additions in the offseason. Is it too early to start asking the question, did the Jaguars overreach where the offensive line is concerned with some of those additions via free agency? De'Ami Brown, the tight end position. Where do you stand on that right now? You going to give that some more time, or do you think it's a fair question right now?
I mean, I definitely think we're now, approaching the midpoint of the season where you actually have, a big enough sample size to get an idea of what, is kind of going on. And right now, at the end of the day, in terms of per his pay, De'Ami Brown's not exactly adding up. I still like him a lot. I still think that the Jaguars can access a higher level with him. But yeah, that's not super encouraging. Patrick McCarry is not quite what you were looking for. It seemed like the Jags, I mean, have the Jags ever have they ever paid an offensive lineman big money in free agency and it turned out? Like really,
At the guard position too.
at the guard position,
Yeah,
like
sure.
Zane Beatles,
Yeah.
Norwell. I mean, it just seems like it never works. And so, yeah, you're starting to wonder, are these actually, how big of upgrades are these really? Because, in the first few weeks, it kind of seemed like they were. Now, not so much. Um, I think you're right though. Just drawing back to Trevor for a second, I don't think it was completely on him. Obviously, the drops, BTJ kind of regressed again. You don't like seeing that. I also am wondering, if Liam Cohen's doing Trevor any favors. I just mentioned with the running game, but also kind of what they're asking Trevor to do, and maybe what they're asking Brian Thomas Jr. to do. Someone pointed out, yesterday that, when BTJ was blowing up last year, you think about all those big plays, they're all down the sideline. They're all like out towards the out of bounds marker. The Jags asked BTJ to go over the middle a lot, and it's clearly not working. So you maybe need to figure out like a way to utilize him where you're not asking him to run slants and different things like that because it just doesn't seem to be a skill set. You obviously were encouraged by Travis Hunter, though. that was nice to kind of see a breakout game, albeit in garbage time. Um, yeah, I think right now dysfunction is kind of the word, which is really weird because like even, I would say 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we weren't really thinking dysfunction, but the Jaguars offense has lost its way and really so the defense lost its way yesterday. And against the Seahawks, you kind of have to give the defense credit for keeping them in that game. But, to kind of look at the defense a little bit too, I mean, they're banged up as well, but that was just
Mhm.
you didn't show up.
No, and you got tight ended again,
Yeah,
and so uh, there's going to be questions about Wingard at the safety position after the last couple of weeks. Those are already being thrown around. But as for the Jaguars offense, I think it's got to go back to what we saw in the first 3 or 4 games. And I understand there's limitations up front and at tight end because Brenton Strange continues to miss
it's a big
time.
deal. It's
I
a
mean, you
big,
had
big deal
you
that
had
he's out.
Cole Van Lannon in there yesterday as an extra offensive lineman in motion pre-snap.
Yeah.
They're trying to use him like a blocking tight end, I guess. Those are the type of things that they're trying to work with Strange being out of the lineup. I understand all that, but I thought going into the season they were going to have to be pretty running back centric. And ETN, the numbers look pretty good yesterday. 44 yards rushing on just 8 carries, so he's 5.5 per run. But again, procedurally, getting lined up, and avoiding the 5 yard type of penalties and the penalties in general on offense. That's a storyline that we were aware of back in camp. And now we're 7 games in, and you're still having these problems on the offensive side of the ball that really detract from your ability to be running back centric. And that includes throwing the football to them as well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, like it's at a point where either the teaching, the implementation of the game plan is and of the just, running the plays is wrong, or there's just basic execution breakdown, whether that's Trevor snapping at the wrong time with the illegal shifts and stuff like that,
Yep.
or if it's maybe even the players are not doing
Hmm.
what they're supposed to be doing in motion or et cetera, in time. But it's a massive issue right now. I mean, you've shown that you can put up points on offense. You've shown that this team definitely has an identity offensively. But yeah, I mean, you can't really rely on that identity if you're looking at first and 20, first and 15, second and 15. Like once you're in those spots, you're putting it on Trevor. You're having to kind of throw out if it's early on in the game, like, that second drive, Macari gets, I think, a holding penalty on the opening carry by ETN,
Hmm.
and that's a 3 and out. Bang. Like right there. It's like,
You're not
even,
overcoming that in this offense. You're
well,
just
and you
not.
start to wonder, was there some flukiness to when the Jags were overcoming that in the first few weeks? You
Hmm.
think about that catch that Travis Hunter made against the 49ers when it was like first and 20 at their own 5 yard line. It's like, how many times are you going to pull that off in a season? You know what I mean? You're going to
Hmm.
be able to reliably do that every game. Not if you're not an elite quarterback, elite offense kind of setup like Patrick Mahomes or something like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's bad. I mean, this bye week, like you said, is is uh is coming at the perfect time because they really have to get their shit together. And it kind of feels like we're going back to how we felt in week one about the Panthers, where you're
Hmm.
entering this Raiders game, kind of like, hey, like you've got games coming up after this that if you don't go win this Raiders game, you might be in serious trouble.
Yeah, and
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 yeah,
December is the month that actually looked really attractive, which is good news, bad news for this team because at the end of the day, we still felt like going into the season opener that if Jacksonville somehow came out of London at 4-3 or even 3-4, they were going to be in good shape going into November and when things look to ease up from a schedule perspective. And it still looks that way. But December, maybe not as much with what the Colts are doing right now. And the
yeah, it's
Texans,
bad.
the road game at the Texans still out there as well. So defensively, you talked about it earlier. Boy, Stafford and the Rams offense, red zone wise, was just, what is it, four for
I
four,
mean,
4 touchdowns, I guess, for Stafford and the offense down there. no Pakua, but you said it with uh, Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, 5 catches, 35 yards. You look at that and go, that's pretty good. But then he has 3 touchdown catches
Three
in the red
touchdowns.
zone in those situations. Tough day for Jordan Lewis, I thought. I think you're seeing more offenses go with multiple tight ends and groupings that actually get the Jags in base
Yeah,
because I think they like the matchups with the tight ends against the safeties and or your strong side linebacker, your extra linebacker. And then also that puts Lewis in the position of being your outside corner on one side, which, when you look at it statistically yesterday, it wasn't terrible for the Jags as far as explosive plays. You look at it again, and it's 182 for Stafford in yards, and he averaged just 5.5. But I think the Jags are a better team, in my opinion, in nickel. And look, your star power on defense has got to play better too up front. I mean, Trayvon Walker really wasn't a
was
factor in the
anonymous.
game yesterday. You need your big time guys. Devin Lloyd doesn't make the trip. It was just a non-factoring type of day for the Jaguar defense. If they aren't taking the ball away, it becomes especially problematic.
Yeah, they're kind of a feast or famine defense, and we knew that, right? Like, and it was all really fun when they were feasting, but now we're in famine, and it's not as enjoyable. Obviously, the lack of Devin Lloyd really shapes this team. If he can be back and healthy against the Raiders, that's a going to be a massive deal. But yeah, the safeties are a problem, and we kind of said going into the season that we were pretty worried about that group. I think Eric Murray overall has been a positive addition, but even he's not a all pro. He's not a Pro Bowl kind of guy. He had a really strong start, but we're kind of seeing him return to about the level that we expected. Dewey Wingard is uh,
Third
rough, man.
safety at
Y-
best. He's a third
Yeah, I mean
safety.
he should be a backup, and
Core
unfortunately
core
the Jaguars are
core
in a position
special
where
teamer. Yeah.
yeah, he plays a lot of snaps. Same thing with Antonio Johnson. Um, if the Jags were to go make another trade, I would love a safety. That would probably be the one defensive addition I would look for if it's not like maybe an edge rusher. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's an issue, and it was also really even in the game last week where the Jaguars defense did fairly well, but there were still some issues. The DL was still pretty solid last week. The DL this week was, I mean,
Not good.
nobody did anything. One tackle for loss, very few pressures, and yeah, 4 QB hits. I mean, if you're
And
not
and
getting
three
to
of
the
them,
quarter,
three of them from one guy, you
yeah,
know?
uh, it's it is going to continue to be a problem. I mean, I just don't really see if this team's not forcing a lot of turnovers, they're probably going to be giving up a lot of points. And the complementary football that we've talked about isn't just going to happen. Um, yeah, it was interesting because the Jaguars, even in some of their lackluster performances, still been pretty physical. Neither side of the line was physical
No.
yesterday at
I
all.
thought I thought Jared Verse very early in the game set the tone for the Rams. He
Yeah.
got to Trevor, put him on the ground, and basically said, "This is coming all day long."
Yep.
And with the Jags, some of it due to the Rams, some of it due to their own deficiencies, put Trevor in a position where you can't win that way. And he ultimately gets sacked 7 times, hit 11 times. And other than really Armstead in the interior of that defense, and we know Eric is winding down. Just a lot of guys right now. It feels like for the Jags up
Yeah.
front, and I know Trayvon's dealing with the issue, the club and the injury and
Yeah.
all those things, and that's very difficult, I'm sure, for him given his position and the techniques he's got to play and those things. That's a real setback for him, but they need at least one more real war daddy type up front that other teams have to account for down in and down out. They don't have that right now.
Yeah. No, it's especially evident when they're having to rotate, which, we've enjoyed the fact that they're not rotating constantly like, the organization was doing last year, but it's just kind of, yeah, Josh Hines Allen, I would say a top 10 pass rusher in the NFL, but he's not top 5. Um and then Drayvon Walker is maybe top 20, top 15, but that's really, really good. It's not great, and if you're not getting any kind of interior push, it's it's just difficult. It's just going to be difficult. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. It feels like we've reset, completely. All the good vibes from 2 or 3 weeks ago have now kind of, just evaporated into question marks of, does this team can this team access that higher gear again? And even if they do, is that something they can do on a consistent basis? Is this team actually taking steps forward, or is this kind of going to be a will they, won't they, Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation for the Jaguars?
When you lose a couple in a row and your kicker's in a slump, we've
Oh
seen it
God, man.
before. Teams will cut a kicker when things ain't going well. They won't fire a coach. It's kind of like baseball when you fire the pitching coach or the hitting
Right.
coach when you're slumping. What type of peril do you think Cam Little's in right now after another miss? And look, ultimately it didn't matter. He made
Right.
his only extra point. His miss was 50-ish, I guess. Um, but this has been an ongoing theme for him for the first time in his career. Still a very young guy, too. So to experience this sort of wall that he's run into, you said last week before the Rams game, he's got 2 games for you anyway before you think you got to make a move. Do you still kind of feel that way with him going into the bye week? Maybe this gives him a chance to clear his head, get right mentally, and then come back and jump back onto that track he was on where he was so impressive for about his first 20, 21 games of his career.
I mean, yeah, we talk about the bye week coming at the perfect time for a lot of guys to either get healthy. This is a game for Cam to get mentally healthy, I guess, like to lock in because it's bad. And his vibes are bad, I'm not gonna lie. Like after when he misses and stuff, he's clearly upset.
Right.
And you want to see that guys care, but you do start to wonder, wait, is he treading water right now? Is can he stay afloat? Yeah, I mean, this game in Las Vegas might be do or die for Cam Little, because let's say the Jags win that game, but Cam Little misses another field goal or misses a couple or something like that. Jags might have to say right then and there, it's like we're 5-3 or we're 4-4 either way. It's like we gotta if we can't afford to really be doing this to be having points missing out there. And in that vein, I think there's an interesting connection to the Jaguars going for it on fourth down in this game.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
I get that Liam Cohen's aggressive, and I was gonna kind of bring this up in a way of like, do you think he was too aggressive in this game? But if you kind of go look at the flow of the game, yeah, you're down 14-0, but you miss that field goal. It's going to be 14-3 if you make it. If you make that field goal, when you go down the next drive and you lose it on downs because you went for it on fourth, if instead you kick that field goal, it's 21-6, right?
Hmm.
Then you go for it again on the next 2 offensive drives to start the second half, and you don't get it on fourth down and nose. It's 21-15 or 21-12 if the Jags
Hmm.
are able to if they're able to just kick field goals instead. You're looking at a potential like you're at least entering the fourth quarter in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if Liam Cohen really is at a point where he doesn't trust. Like it might be an overreaction, but he might not trust Cam Little at all, and then you're talking about like, okay, well, we're down 21-0, going for it on fourth down every drive instead of kicking field goals. I mean, do you think Cohen is like completely, you
I
know,
think there's some partial, perhaps, truth to that. I think the thing that gets missed a lot of times, if you're a head coach or you're thinking about it in terms of how a head coach is thinking in those situations, I think it goes back to who am I going against at the quarterback position on the other side? Our field goal is going
Yeah,
to be enough against this guy. Against Matthew Stafford, you're probably thinking we're going to have to get in the end zone, right?
yeah,
If it's Fields, Justin Fields over there, or someone like that,
then sure.
um, then maybe I'm thinking Mason Rudolph or somebody like that. I'm thinking, yeah, I can kick some field goals and we can make this thing 17-13 or 23-20 or something. I think you're also probably taking into consideration defensively, how are we going to hold up against this guy on the other side? And so I didn't really have a problem with it. I understand in retrospect how that can work out. In the bigger picture for Cam Little, I just I just think the guy is so talented. He just turned 22 years old in August. Still a very, very young guy. I could see a scenario where the Jags eventually perhaps part ways. I would not go with that right now. I would give him the bye week, see how he comes back against Vegas. If he's bad against Vegas, at a minimum at that point, you probably got to go practice squad with a kicker and compete on a daily basis. Um, but I could see him being like Jason Myers, the old Jaguars kicker. Early in his career, made some bombs, had a lot of talent. You could see it. And then you let him go. And now he's been with the Seahawks for what, 7 or 8 years,
Yeah,
settled in very nicely. And if you're the Jags, you can't worry about that. I mean, you got to have a guy right now that can
right.
make kicks. But I think Cam Little's going to be really good for a long time in this league, but it may not be with the Jags for the entirety
Yeah,
of his career.
I'm wondering if Gladstone and Cohen can kind of do a, when players are having rough seasons and then out of the blue, it's yeah, they're going on IR due to
Yeah.
whatever. It's like maybe just ice Cam Little if
Quad strain,
yeah.
something
Just
like that.
say, hey man, go take the 6 weeks off or something like that. But
Yeah, bring in
no, I mean
Matt,
I
bring
want
in
Cam
Matt,
Little to be
bring
good.
Matt, bring Matt Wright back in, or
Yeah,
somebody
why
like
not?
that.
Uh, I want Cam to be the guy. I mean, we all really like him. He clearly, like you said, has a lot of talent. We know what he can do, but I mean, at the moment, the trust level is not good. Like,
No, and the kicker market's wild, dude. I mean, the Packers brought in a guy who was just about to take a job as a teacher at a school in Cleveland,
yeah,
and sign him off the street and he kicks a 61 yarder against Arizona
yeah,
yesterday. It's like, look at Dallas's kicker, the Lions kicker. I mean, these guys, they literally come off the street, and the next thing you know, they're, all pro like. So it's an entirely different market than any other position on the
yeah,
field because you're not just going to go to the street and bring in a quarterback, unless you catch Kurt Warner working at a grocery store in Iowa or something. It just doesn't happen at other positions, right?
yeah. Um, I also want to say that, uh, you know, we kind of just like kind of my final talking point. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the offense. Um, I'm wondering if we're also in a bad mojo thing with Parker Washington
Huh.
because I don't think Parker Washington's been bad this year, but I don't think that him and Trevor actually have the connection that we kind of expected from them. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
Parker looked so good in the offseason. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that dude's been grinding, and we can see that there's a really awesome skill set. He should have had the return yesterday that was taken out, but I'm not talking about special teams. I'm just talking about offensive
Hmm.
because we highlighted Brian Thomas Jr.'s target to completion rate earlier in the year with the drops and everything. Parker
Yeah.
Washington's right now is not good. Like,
Yeah. 10 times yesterday for 4 catches. Now, is that on him always? No. But yeah, I mean, it says something for sure.
yeah. I mean, really, it's getting to a point where I don't know where the Jags should, channel. Who should be the guy? Who should be getting the most targets
I mean,
on this offense?
should it be Travis Hunter at this point? I mean,
I mean,
he
he
was
looked good yesterday, but again, garbage time.
he
So
became the focal point though during that game. And you're
yeah,
right, the game was pretty much over, but it felt like in real time, like, wow, it may be a concerted effort moving forward to dial up Travis Hunter on a more consistent basis and more
yeah.
than what we've seen with Brian Thomas Jr. or Parker Washington. I don't think Parker Washington was ever going to be a one like guy, but your point remains in terms of how much you're trying to get him the football, even as a two slash
The
three.
Jags clearly want to get him the ball like
They do.
bad,
I think
and
they trust him though. I
yeah,
think they trust Parker Washington, and I don't necessarily blame them
yeah,
after what we've seen from BTJ and Deami Brown, who's been beat up a little bit too.
yeah. Nope. It's a it's a time of uncertainty in
Yeah.
Jacksonville. No, it's I mean, I'm trying I don't think I'm overreacting really. I'm not in a point, where I'm like, "Oh, well, this team is falling apart. It's over." But I am, back to I would say neutral on this season.
hmm
It's it's very it's just it's unsure
Yeah.
if this team is legit or not at this point. But I guess all we can do is just wait through the bye week and see if they kind of get their shit together for the trip to Vegas.
Yeah, it's a perfect get right opportunity, man. I mean, to have the bye week and then, yeah, you still got to go on the road to Vegas, but that's a bad team.
It's a
And
bad team, and that's
I mean,
not a
the damn Chiefs were kneeling down before the 2 minute warning
yeah. No,
yesterday.
we freaked. Me and my friends freaked out when we saw that. We were like,
And
"Are you kidding
I
me?"
know Reed's trying to be respectful of Pete Carroll, but if I'm Pete Carroll, I'm like, bro, just keep feeding it to us before you
Yeah,
kneel it down. And we've got 3 timeouts with 2:30 left in the game. That was bizarre for the
Y-
National Football League. You just
yeah.
never
You
see
never
that.
see that. No,
No.
that's gonna be. What's funny is that I think they'll. I think what it was like 33 points, like 31, 33-0.
Yeah.
Uh, There will be bigger margins of victory. It's 31 points. There will be bigger margins of victory in the NFL this season. It just happens.
hmm
No team is getting beat like the Raiders got beat on Sunday.
Humiliated,
Yeah,
you know.
really bad.
So we'll see how the
Also, yeah,
Raiders respond.
Geno Smith. Yeah, if you want to get some turnovers for this defense again,
Yeah.
Geno Smith is right for the picking. So,
Well, I mean, who the hell does he have to throw it to right now?
Jacoby
Uh,
Myers.
yeah. Is Brock Bowers healthy right now?
No, he's been out.
You got the other tight end, Mayer,
Yeah,
from
Michael
Notre Dame.
Mayer's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, they've got two good tight ends, but
and the problem is too is like,
what about
you know,
Max? You got to deal with
well,
Max on the other side. But he looked like he got beat up a little bit yesterday against the Chiefs, maybe.
yeah, no, he didn't. I mean, he didn't do anything, and yeah, I think he sustained a small injury. And generally you see the rookie quarterback with a veteran running back to kind of stabilize things. I don't know if the experiment of doing a rookie running back with a very old quarterback exactly works. I feel bad for Ashton Genty
Jacksonville,
right now.
Jacksonville native Ashton Genty gonna go
I know,
against
dude.
the Jags.
Dude, if you watch him play, like even like in the game, yes, like dude is fighting. Like he's had some incredible runs for 4 yards, is I guess my point. Like it's like fighting for his life to get something positive. And but you know what? Jags better not freaking rest
No,
easy. Because
no,
if you let Genty pop, like
yeah.
he will go. So
That he is Genty suffering through what Josh Jacobs was able to escape
yeah.
in
uh,
making that move to
When he
the
got
Green
out to
Bay
Green Bay.
Packers.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. Well, Ev, it's been a lot of fun, my man.
Yes,
Hadn't
it
wasn't
has.
fun yesterday, but
Yeah.
it's been
But we've cooled
therapeutic.
down.
Therapeutic,
Yeah.
in some ways. We're able to get this out and talk about it. And we certainly hope you enjoy the programming here on Reier on YouTube. If you will, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, Reier on YouTube. And if you'd give us a thumbs up, a like, that would help us out a lot as well. Ev, anything else before we get out of here?
No, good, good to get to the bye week, but kind of ready to not think about the Jaguars for a few days after that one. So it's perfect timing. But hey,
Yeah, the
we'll
weekend.
rebound and we can definitely kind of start breaking down the Raiders a little bit more either this weekend or next week.
Yeah, it was kind of like old times, unfortunately
Yeah,
for the
felt like
Jags.
last season. Felt like
Oh,
last season.
God, that performance was so pre-2025.
Yeah.
But then also in that your Alabama Crimson Tide got a big win the day before. That's the way it had been for years. Alabama would always win on Saturday, and then you'd kind of have to suffer through the Jags on Sunday. But maybe that'll flip the script in Vegas in a couple Sundays. We'll see. Ev, appreciate it as always. We'll do it again real soon.
See ya.
For Evan Reier, I'm Travis Reier. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, so long, everybody.